Okay, so I have started to integrate the new search code that I received, and I'm now making this recording so that I could demonstrate what I've done and that you all can see where we are in this process, and that those who are collaborating on it may be able to assist me further. Okay, first of all, I have a dynamic get called search tables. So if I open this dynamic get, you will see that I am simply calling the factory and getting the tables, and then I have in my custom admin view I have a get components function, and it gets all the components for me, and I'm putting that into the data, and that's it. And I'm using the class header to target this dynamic get by loading the search factory and as a search factory so that it doesn't collide with Joomla's factory somehow. And so I'm simply calling this, want to call it search API. I'm saying give me the table class and give me all the tables, and I'm putting it in here. And so we have basically in the items array on the dynamic view, we have this array of having two values filled with values. Okay, so that's just the dynamic get, the only one that I currently have starting up the page. So when the page opens up, those gets done. If I then go to the page itself, I have added some validation to see whether everything I want is here. Now the form is a PHP way to building the fields. I prefer using that way. So basically we have this get dynamic form, and we are looking whether we have items. Did the dynamic get succeed or something went wrong? If we have items, do we have the tables? Is it an array of tables, and is it an array of components? So this validation just helps us actually check that we have everything here we want. Now we're starting a form using the Joomla form. So if I go up here to my class headers, I am basically loading Joomla's form into that area, and having done that, I now are instantiating that form in my little function, and then I'm using the form. First I load the XML, which is simply a string saying if I'm going to use any rules, it will be found here. If I have any custom fields, it will be found here, which we don't, but it just makes it possible that we could. And then I'm setting as field sets, a search field set, a settings field set, and a view field set, which I will then programmatically populate, because I like doing it through the PHP approach. Basically setting up the attributes, and then having the attributes set, I put the options, and I create the XML, get field XML, and validate that it is a simple XML element, and then add it to the form and targeting the search field set. And so here you will see I'm building the type of search, which is the mode, and here the search value, and here the replace value, and here I've got a set of checkboxes which has the search behavior, and here I have also the component ID, which the -1 value is for searching all components. This feature is actually, as you can see here, I'm disabling it for now because I haven't updated the API, so it's disabled read only, And so it currently will only have this -1 value, which means all components. But eventually I would like to make the search API able to target one project, which is one component, and only search what's related to that. Okay, this also leads over to the table name. The table name is also just like the component one. It's a way to target a specific table. The default is all, which is also a -1 table name. But as soon as table name has a string as a value, because the table names are strings, we know that we are searching only for one specific table. And then I am instantiating the editor, and this is the only part that I'm not sure if this is going to work. The editor is what we are using. Once you click on a found item, we are loading the code from that item into this editor. And we want to be able to scroll to the specific position of the editor inside. And there has been code written for this, except that it wasn't done this way. So I'm wondering if this can be used. I would prefer using this, as this causes us to basically let Joomla do everything, and moving between versions of Joomla, this is always going to be the best choice, so that we don't need to be concerned about any changes. Okay, here we are. We've got our form, and this form obviously will not build. It will return a null if it doesn't have any of the values that we're requiring here, the table and the component. So it can either return us the form, or it can return null, this function. So here I'm basically calling the function, putting it into the form. And so on the page, when I then check whether the form exists, it's basically checking if everything is here. And only if that exists do I actually execute this part. And here I'm doing an actual table check, and I'm putting the tables into our search tables. And I'm also mapping some of the code which was written before, which probably needs a bit of updating because of how I'm instantiating our fields, so that this would be relevant. So we have some JavaScript here, we have a little table here, and here I am basically echoing the search related fields, and then I'm echoing the settings, all from the form, which really makes it convenient. And here I'm setting up our form. JCB has a way that it can detect that you have a form in your view, and then it will no longer add the form around everything, which I like. I like this approach because it gives me control on where the form is going to live in my project. So this is our front end. I've literally taken, here's the get components code, so it's a custom code area. Here's the JavaScript from the previous process and how it worked in some of the code that's been written to accommodate the search. I have not started with adapting this code to this implementation that I've just shown. In fact, this is the next step. It's to take this code and implement it now within how the form is built. We then, in our Ajax area, we have a few Ajax: search table, we have update table, we have get search value, and we have set value. And here we have get replace value. So get replace value and get search value is two different functions. The one, if you search, it simply returns what you found. The other one will work when you are with this form mode we have here, called type search. You got search and you got search and replace, or replace. And when you have the one selected search, we will be using this get search value.
And this is the value we will put into the editor. If you will use this function to get the value for us and to put it into the editor. If we are having the mode of search and replace, then we have a function that is called get replace value, which will also get the found value and automatically add the change. You know, how will the replacement look like? So here's the code for that. The search table, it needs these values passed, and you can see here that the first one must be by name actually is the big deal, and the order is kind of important, but the name actually will solve that, I suppose. Yeah. Okay, the point is we are taking those values that are being passed in. We're first validating that the table exists, of course, and then we are loading our configuration and simply getting find. And this find at the moment is just returning the items. Now I know we've said that we want to model these items a little further on the server side to add them to the table for us as rows already built for the table, and not to have the JavaScript do that. So I will be doing that. I'll basically add another layout where we give these items to that layout, and that layout will generate for us what we need. And we will move it here to probably call it table or something in this array. So this array has at the moment two values, the success value and the items. And when we do add the table values, I'll probably drop these items and call it table. Or it will only have this saying that nothing was found, or if there was an error, it will give an error message. So these are the simple return set for search table. When you do update table, it's basically the same values, except the extra value here is the replace value. Now this actual call will automatically update every table that you are giving here. This table name, everywhere in that table, you know, unless we have the component ID, which at this moment, this feature you could basically say is not working, but eventually we would want to be able to target the component wherever it's in these tables. Okay, so that's one of the smart filters we are planning on. But this one literally is you could say is a dangerous function, because it will actually update the code in the database without asking again. So you don't trigger this if you haven't explained to the user exactly what's about to happen. So just take care of that. Now the next step is get search value. Get search value, again, we just usually the field name, the row ID, which is the actual item ID. So with every return set of this search table, the items are having a ID of the actual place, and the table name. This will return a value for us. It will then use those to actually get the value and return it for us as a value or an error. Now the get replace value is a little bit more challenging, and it has obviously a bunch more values that it needs to do the get replace. It does not update the database. It simply gets the value and updates it in memory, and then returns it here to being updated. So we have a function in our agent called get value, and here this value here, you'll see between the two we are basically calling get value. It's the same function. This one here is actually I think the row. So in this one you'll see the row, I mean the line inside of the data set that is being returned. So you can leave this as a 0, which will then update all lines, or you can say which line, because the search result set, this one, search table, this item set, It has the, everywhere it found the values, it also gives the line number. So these line numbers can also then be returned. And I recognize here that it actually can be, sometimes it can be an integer and sometimes it can be a string. So I'm going to say this is mixed actually. I forgot to update this line value, can be mixed. And the reason sometimes why it will sometimes be a string is because when you are searching in a subform, the line number actually shows the path in the subform onto where the value is located. So it becomes yeah, kind of a pointer to inside the subform, exactly which field, and inside the field which line. So it becomes a string, this line value. It's not always an integer, the line value. And if you look at the API, you'll see that. I could show that in another video maybe. Okay, so here we are again populating our search values as we would. And since we are working with an actual row ID, we don't need the component ID because we are targeting a specific value already with the get value. We are passing the field name, the row ID, the line number, the table name, and this true means updated for us. Put the replace value for that line, or if it's 0, if this value is a 0, it will be all lines, so 0 is all, and then upwards, okay? So then it will give us this value with those lines updated and return it. So that's a very smart, easy way, get replace value. And then here is set value. So let's say someone edits the editor and they make changes to that field that was returned. Then the value in the editor is this one. So if you look down here at set value, it is a raw value that is being passed, because we will have the actual factory will make the necessary compiling work when it uses the set value. It knows whether this needs to be base64 encrypted or whether this is a subform or any of that. We don't need to tell it that. It will figure that out itself by using the table name and the field name inside the API. So we will just say, listen, agent, set this value. Here is the value. Here is the row ID. This is the field name, and this is the table. So those are the values we need to pass, and it will return for us a success or an error. And that's really it. So that's our search API code explained. All of it is functional. I have tested it and it does work. These are the router values. So this sets up all that required values for our router to work. Controller. And here I simply set up. So I have not made or written the functions which will now target these endpoints. And I recognize that in the code that has been written, this one, for example, needs to be updated to now targeting the correct URL. So that I'll probably still do all these URL areas to correctly validate that. So yeah, this is where we are in our search project. I would be very excited if we could have another meeting soon, and if we could then maybe walk over this. I was thinking I could compile the component JCB and push these codes the way they are out to the repository. But I also know being able to work in this GUI of JCB with the code has been much more convenient. And so I would think that making a new JCB package and pushing that out would be more helpful to those that are also working on this, so that they can use the same approach and have the same code inside the interface. Okay, so that's just a quick demonstration of where we are at, and I hope to finish this soon. Thank you.